Hypersensitivity reactions. As I said, you're going to be pretty much on your own here, but I am going to run through it real quick and just give you kind of an overview of what I think are some really important points to learn. Hypersensitivity reactions. If any of you have allergies, if you are going for treatment of those allergies, this is an interesting chapter for you, and it's one that I think will apply to doctors and pharmacists and pretty much any biologist. So that's why I wanted to get this in here, this term. You need to look at what anaphylaxis is, what prophylactic treatments are, the Jelling-Combs classification method of looking at this, the different types. The 4 types of hypersensitivity responses are critical for you to understand. So you're going to have to go through and study those 4 main types and be able to answer questions of those. Reagenic antibody, IgE. IgE is the one I call the tall boy. It can cause all sorts of allergic responses, and it's kind of neat to see how they do that now. How some of the allergens cause cross-linkages. You don't need to memorize the specific receptors. I'm looking at figure 15-6. That's too much. Let's not try to worry about memorizing that particular thing. But glance at it. You kind of get the idea that what's happening is it requires a couple of bound antibodies that are bound to their antigens to stimulate degranulation. Actually, I think it's a little more than that. But once the degranulation occurs, you go through a lot of those typical cascade reactions where you're producing more cyclic AMP, where you cause release of calcium from the endoplasmic reticulum, and then that causes granules inside the cells to be released to the outside world. So a lot of microfilament interactions, a lot of things like that. I don't think you should have to memorize that for this class, because you can look it up if you ever need to know it. But this is kind of like that diacylglycerol pathway that most of you learned in biochemistry. But it's interesting to look at. Leukotrienes and prostaglandins, how they're used to mediate usually type 1 reactions, I think. Food allergies, atopic dermatitis. A lot of this chapter is just going to be learning the terminology. I don't expect you to remember all of the interleukins that affect it. Hyposensitization is important. My wife's going through that right now. Antibody-mediated cytotoxic type 2 hypersensitivity. Figure 15-14 is important. What is a granuloma? Can you define it? What type of hypersensitivity reaction is poison oak, or is an allergic reaction to pet dander? Be able to answer some of those types of questions. And that's all I've got for you for this next test. I'll try to post a study guide as soon as I can get the test finished up.